What's up, fellow heroes? I gotta talk about Tales of the Jedi. Not only was it something that I wasn't expecting, but it was definitely something that I need more of. I mean, Dave Filoni did a fantastic job, and he is a fan and much of a Star Wars nerd as the rest of us are, and he loves this kind of stuff. You can tell whenever he makes any of these animated Clone Wars or even The Mandalorian that he knows what the fans want to see, and he knows what the fans are experiencing. With that being said, I think Tales of the Jedi is just a great example of that. He brings forth more story, and the Clone Wars, in the Clone Wars animation, kind of like, I guess, the Clone Verse. I just made that up on the spot now. But the way that he essentially brings forth characters and, for the most part, retcons the prequel series. I don't want to say that, but gives more depth to it. It's like a soft retcon, but it gives more story, and it kind of explains and fills in a lot of what may have been missing before. And in these short stories that are being told to us, it's mainly being told through Count Dooku, and it's something where we've always understood where Count Dooku stood, but because the prequels give a lot of just exposition and just telling us that he is, he's not a Jedi anymore, and that he's more of a political figure for the Separatists and things like that, but showing us his path and how he kind of fell from the light side into the dark side was absolutely beautiful and emotional. It's one thing to tell us exposition. It's another thing to show us that. And the prequels have a lot to give. And I can't be mad at the movies for not being able to show us everything that a character's been through, which is why I kind of love that a lot of these Star Wars stories are going back and doing that. And with this one, the first episode begins with Ahsoka, and there's another episode with Ahsoka as well, but the main story is just Count Dooku, but the whole theme of it all is kind of like master and apprentice, and how a master can influence their apprentice, their Padawan, and kind of like the passing of torch or a baton going on to the next generation, and the influences that carry with it. Dave Filoni is very careful with taking quotes from the prequels that have been said and bringing them to this show, showing like, okay, this is why, said person, trying to censor myself for not spoiling things, but this is why said person said what they did, and really it just shines a light on just how well and cohesive Star Wars is. And kind of, George Lucas always said that you want to watch the series from the prequels onwards. Like, you're supposed to watch it from 1 through 6, and it's supposed to tell a whole cohesive story. And I like how we got these like little interjected puzzle pieces of Clone Wars that fit in between that whole linear story that kind of expands upon it. So the show is a bit more, it has its high moments, but there are special guest characters that show up that are appreciated, and I do enjoy this. So honestly, recommend it if you're a Star Wars fan. 100%. If you're into Star Wars, you can watch it if you don't know much about Star Wars, but I definitely give this like an 8, if not 9 out of 10. It's I'm probably a bit biased here because I'm definitely a huge Star Wars fan. You guys know this. But it is really well told. It's really well told, and I think it brings a lot of emotion, and it shows characters that only, it's made for fans. That's the only kicker, right? I think like that's the biggest downside to it, is that it's definitely made geared towards people who spend more time watching Star Wars. So if you're like new to Star Wars and you're catching on in the later half, you might not understand all the nuances as much that is being portrayed in it, but it doesn't take away from the story. You're still watching this Jedi who you might not know who he is, kind of have a similar path as Anakin did, but told in a different story. So I think that's really interesting, and definitely for its own storytelling techniques, especially for the audience that it's portraying it to, which I feel like is kind of mixed, right? Because it's a cartoon, so when it shows violence, it's not really portraying it in the fullest way. It's like watching those old G.I. Joe or Transformer cartoons, but it's also, catered towards people who are older. But I guess if you're a kid and you're really into Star Wars like I was, this is still good for you. So I don't know. I don't want to get into that, but I did like it again. It is still like a cartoon, so you got to take it with those caveats. But 9 out of 10. But going in to spoilers, for sure. Like, I think that having a character like Yaddle show up was so cool, so freaking awesome. I just have to bring that out. And like Yaddle, someone who just shows up, I think, in just episode 1, right? Doesn't even show up in episode 2. I'm talking about in the movies, right? She shows up in Phantom Menace. I don't think she's there in Clone Wars, and she doesn't really, I don't think she has a line or says anything. She's just there. She's just another person that's the same species as Master Yoda, and for her she has personality here. She has personality. She has motives, and we get to see kind of like what she represents. She represents the last fleeting hope or good that's within Count Dooku. But also, I think like what's really cool is the episode begins with Ahsoka and ends with Ahsoka, and Ahsoka really is kind of the poster child of Clone Wars, and I love how the fans accept her and how they love her as much as they do. So for her to kind of return, we got to see her beginnings, and then we also get to see like how Anakin's training influenced her, and how and ironically saved her, because she is she's his disciple, and whenever Order 66 comes around, and Anakin's really hard on Ahsoka, and we see that, and we see kind of a little bit more of Anakin's just training that he goes on to her, and a lot different than Qui-gon Jinn's or Obi-Wan's training, where Obi-Wan was very patient and trying to show Anakin how to follow the way, the order, and Qui-Gon showing Obi-Wan to trust in your instincts and to go at it your own way. For him to kind of have a mixture of those two, but to have his determination, his ambition distilled into Ahsoka was really, really cool. And to see Ahsoka, like to see forgive me, was it Tengrutans? Their village, and they choose to live a more simple life, right? They're more independent. It took them a little bit longer to join the Republic than other races, and so for us to actually see kind of a little bit of how one subculture of their species lives is really cool. And how Ahsoka, even though at that young age they can't really harness the Force, but they are Force sensitive, so they're probably more sensitive to emotions and interactions with things, with other creatures and beings in the environments. And I love whenever Star Wars explores the Force and in a mystical way and treats it in a mystical manner. So this was the show wasn't that long, right? I think there's like only 6 episodes. Each episode is 20 minutes or less, probably like 15 minutes, and they have so much to them. There's so much packed into them for Star Wars fans as ourselves, and I definitely, God, I want to go rewatch it just to catch anything that I may have missed. And watching Qui-Gon Jinn as a Padawan, or I think he was a Padawan. I don't know if I remember seeing a braid. He might have just been a Jedi Knight, just working with his master, but seeing him at a younger age was definitely interesting. And watching just even the little things of him trusting his instincts and going to save a life, or going to diffuse a conflict rather than rushing forward into a conflict. And whereas Count Dooku is a lot like Anakin, where his first choice is violence, and it has consequences. Like, it stops him from being able to be a part of the masters, like the Jedi Council. It stopped him from becoming a master on the council. And so it's really cool. And watching him as, he serves, the Jedis are serving the Republic, and he goes to serve the Republic, but sees the injustice that is being done because of the Republic. and it sways him, and he changes in a place of good. Like, you know, the greatest acts of crime do not come from necessity, right? Is that something from Aristotle that I'm stealing from Cyberpunk? But overall, I 100% recommend this if you are a Star Wars fan. Go watch this. If you were like, putting it on the side or something, this is definitely something that you have to go check out. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, or anything, any Easter eggs that you caught that I probably missed, and I'm probably gonna have to watch it a second time just for those Easter eggs. But until next time, guys, play nice.